Okay, good morning, Queensland. Oh, nice reception from the journos. That's lovely to hear. Okay, so in good news overnight, we only have 4 new cases and all of them are in hotel quarantine and none of them were in the Hotel Grand Chancellor. We have 27 active cases and in the past 24 hours we have had 13,061 tests. Look, these are really, really good test results, everyone, and it's great to see Queenslanders coming forward. On my way in this morning, I saw people lined up outside of the clinic as well, so everyone's listening to the message that if you are sick, come and get tested, so that's great. Now, I want to personally thank police, health and ambulance staff, and especially those in the Grand Chancellor Hotel. All of the guests were removed yesterday and transported to another hotel. That was very smoothly done, and I do want to thank all of those agencies for working so cooperatively together to make that happen. So all 129 guests have now been relocated. Now, of course, too, all of the actions that we've been taking, Dr. Young has had the full endorsement of the AHPPC. So Dr. Young has been talking to her colleagues on a regular basis about everything that we are doing, and that is being backed up nationally. Not only that, the Federal Health Minister has also contacted our Health Minister here, Yvette D'Arth, and has also backed the actions that we are taking. So swift, strong actions needed to protect Queenslanders. I can also confirm now that 226 staff have all been contacted and are being tested and isolated, and along with the 147 former guests of the hotel, this number has been revised down from yesterday, and so far 3/4 of those have been contacted and tested. In more good news, 406 contacts of the cleaner and her partner have been contacted, tested and isolated, and so far none of them have tested positive. So the investigation is still underway. We won't be commenting daily on that investigation. That is a matter for police and health, so we'll let them deal with that. But I do want to make just a few comments about a quarantine into the future. So we are going to look at all options, and one of those options is to look at some of the mining camps that we have in Queensland. Now, for a start, some of these mining camps are 4-star. They are of a very good quality, high standard. My understanding is some of them have, most of them, the ones that we're looking at, have balconies, so there's a lot of fresh air for guests. And also too, there's the capacity for all of the staff and the cleaners and everyone to also be based on those sites as well. Now, I'm going to put this forward as an option to the federal government, and we'll be having those discussions, so we'll look forward to those discussions over the next few days. But also too, I do want to discuss it at National Cabinet. That will be held on Friday week. I hope the AHPPC advice will also go to National Cabinet. And it's a matter for state and territories, but I think with this new strain, we have to put all options on the table. And these are sensible, rational options. The Howard Springs works very well in the Northern Territory, and there's no reason why we couldn't do something similar here in Queensland, or if not, around the country. But of course, that's a matter for other jurisdictions. So we are looking at those options. We are looking at alternative plans to hotel quarantine that is based, right in the midst of CBD, where you have a whole lot of staff that come in from all around, and you have people flying in and out of airports. So I think this is a rational option, and if we are dealing with a strain which is up to 70% more infectious, I think we need to be really serious about it. So it's something I think we need to give very, very careful consideration. So I've asked Dr. Young and the Health Minister and the Commissioner and her team to go and look at some options for government to consider. So look, I'll hand over to Dr. Young and then the Health Minister.
Thank you, Premier. So 4 new cases here in Queensland overnight, none of them related to the Grand Chancellor outbreak. So 2 are 2 men from the United States who are in one hotel, not the hotel that the Grand Chancellor people went to, and 2 are from South Africa in another hotel. Again, not where any of those guests were transferred to last night. So that means we now in Queensland have 27 active cases with a total of 1,287 cases to date. Thank you to every single person who's come forward to get tested. You know me, I would always like to see more, not because I've got any concerns, but just it gives us an even better picture of what is happening out there. So please, anyone with any symptoms at all, anywhere in Queensland, don't think because you're in one part of Queensland that there is no chance that you've managed to acquire the infection. The best way, any symptom, just come forward and get tested, and then you'll know that you don't have COVID-19 infection. So that is really important as we go forward. Now, I am very confident that we have found the close contacts of both the cleaner and her partner, and because we had those 3 days that people weren't leaving their home and people followed those instructions brilliantly, then I have very little concern that that spread in the community. So we're testing all of those people. So far we haven't had any positives, which is good, but we all have to remember that 14-day incubation period. So those people do need to stay in isolation for the full 14 days from when they potentially had contact with someone with the virus. So that's all working very, very well. And as you heard, we are looking at other options in Queensland that might assist us in quarantining people. So we have a very, very good quarantine program here that we've had now since March last year. We have a lot of practice at it, and so we're looking again if there's anything we can do to enhance that program. But at this stage, there is nothing that I have found that says that the cleaner did anything wrong. This is a virus, a very, very contagious virus, and I absolutely want to thank the cleaner for all the help she's provided and she's continuing to provide. That is critical. Remembering she's infected with it, so she is unwell. So she is providing us all of that assistance while she'll also be concerned. So thank you.
So we want to thank everyone who was involved in the logistics of yesterday. We moved 129 people from the Grand Chancellor to other hotel quarantine, and I appreciate that for those 129, and particularly the ones who were due to be released. It is a difficult choice to require them to quarantine up to another 14 days, depending on what we find with the investigation. So we thank them very much for their cooperation. I want to thank all of the people who have previously left hotel quarantine and the staff who we are contacting and also quarantining and getting tested for their cooperation. Thank you to the Grand Chancellor for their efforts and support and cooperation through all of the investigation and the work, both as a hotel quarantine since they first became a quarantine site, but also particularly over the last week, their cooperation in working through these issues and making sure we are containing this virus. Big shout out to our health workers, to the Queensland Ambulance Service for transporting everyone safely yesterday. All 129 were removed from the Grand Chancellor before midnight last night, and of course the Queensland Police Service as well. This required multi-agency coordination and cooperation, and we got that, and it was done so well. So I just want to thank everyone involved. Again, thank you so much to those who have been in quarantine, and we are asking more of you. But the reason we're asking more of you as individuals is because we need to ensure we keep 5 million Queenslanders safe, and we also don't spread this to other states and territories across Australia. We all have a responsibility to make sure, particularly this new, more infectious variant, the UK variant, isn't spread out into the community and across the country, because we've seen what that means elsewhere. Sadly, overnight, the UK is reporting more than 1,500 deaths in the last 24 hours. So we know what can happen if we don't contain this. So My message to the rest of Queenslanders, thanks for all of your tremendous work coming out and getting tested. Please keep it up. We want to see high testing levels, not just when we have cases like we're seeing now, but also just generally at all times from now right through until the vaccine is fully rolled out in Queensland and Australia. We want to see Queenslanders continue to come out and get tested if they have any symptoms whatsoever. So thank you again for everyone, all their efforts. It was a tremendous job yesterday. We have contacted almost all contacts now. We only have that few left who are former quarantine guests, but all other staff have been contacted. All close contacts of the cleaner and the partner have all been contacted, all tested and all in quarantine, which means that we have a really good grasp of having this contained at this point, but of course we'll keep checking on those results as people get tested while they're in quarantine, and we want Queenslanders to keep coming out and getting tested.
Good morning. Just briefly, for our operation in the last 24 hours, we've only seen one penalty infringement notice issued, which was for a person who had left home during the 3-day lockdown and then was untruthful to police around the purpose for that. So that was investigated and followed up. We've handed out 2,153 masks since Friday. We processed 2,153 domestic passengers yesterday, 5,358 vehicles, and refused entry to 45 persons. We currently have 3,333 people in hotel quarantine across Queensland and each in hotels. With respect to the investigation, I know everyone's very interested in that, but obviously yesterday the focus was very much on the relocation of the 129 persons from the Grand Chancellor to the new hotel quarantine, which was an operation that went to late last night and successfully completed, as you have heard, so well done by all those agencies involved there. We have commenced the investigation. We are reconstructing all the processes, interviewing people, conducting inspections of the hotel itself, including air conditioning. We'll wait for the results of that to come through and then we'll brief you on where that's at. So at this stage, still nothing obvious as to how it's been transmitted. Thank you.
Sorry, a question.
Sure.
Have you received CCTV footage? And have you
Yeah, we're in the process of looking at that CCTV footage, not only from the fact of what happened, but also looking at processes and how things have been done in the hotel.
And as part of those interviews with some of those people who were infected at the hotel?
Those interviews are ongoing. I don't have a list of everyone that's being interviewed, but obviously that will include anyone that we think can give us information around what's happened.
How many people have phoned police link to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't
after
have that information with me. Sorry. Thank you.
You mentioned that the government is considering all options when it comes to the quarantining procedures. Apart from mining camps, what else is the government considering?
No, that's the option we're looking at. And like I said, it may not stack up, but let's look at the options and see what's available.
And so in your mind, is that just be a Queensland thing, or would each state be sending people to their own remote mining camps?
It will depend where the international flights come into. So it would have to be where an international flight could go.
Which mining camps are you looking at, Premier?
A number.
How many?
Can you
Sorry, a couple. Yeah, no, we'll look at them first and then we'll update you.
You've said just before that you're taking this seriously, this new variant, and that's why you're looking at these mining camps. Why then move people who could be potentially infectious with the UK variant to another hotel yesterday? Why not leave them there and contain it inside that hotel rather than creating more touch points, interacting them with more staff, police, ambulance officers?
Well, Dr. Young's advice was that it was safe to do so and it would minimise the risk to move everyone out of that hotel until we can get to the bottom of what the cause was. And that's why those engineering investigations will happen as well. But I'll get I will. Any other questions for me?
Will the government be releasing the details of the investigation complete publicly?
Well, that's a matter for police.
Premier, just in
Yeah.
relation to the cleaner...
I don't have a problem with that, but it was a matter for police, yeah.
Sorry, just in relation to the cleaner, I've just had information from a source come through saying that what happened was the original infected man was moved to hospital, but the cleaner then went straight to the room and the infected fiancé was still in there, so there was a breakdown of communications. Is that...
Once again, all that should be directed to police, but I've not heard any of that.
With staff at the hotel being directed to isolate,
What sort of compensation options are being looked at for those staff who now, some of whom may be casual, who won't be able to work?
My understanding is that we actually put in place a fund that people can access, but I'll have to get back to you on that. We did that early on in the pandemic for people who could not go to work for a certain period of time.
What will happen to the miners who stay at the mining camps? Will they have to be empty sites?
Well,
the government's concerned?
well, some are empty, so we will look at that. You sure can.
Could I please address that question? My concern was that I did not know how it spread in the hotel. So I didn't want the virus to potentially spread to more people in the hotel. So that's why I wanted them all out of there. Now, we've got to remember that our QAS, our ambulance service, have been moving infected people for many, many, many months because I have not wanted to keep infected people in a hotel once they're found to be positive. So they treated every single person in that hotel, all 129 of them, as if they had COVID-19. So therefore, the movement was done perfectly safely to another hotel, because we've also got obligations to not only the whole of Queensland to keep this virus out of other parts of Queensland, but we have obligations to those people that we've been quarantining in that hotel, that they don't get the virus while in quarantine from being there. So that's why it was done, but it was perfectly safe.
Speaking with an ambulance officer yesterday, she was concerned because the training that they've been given, yes, to clean out and do deep cleans of the ambulances have been given, but she felt that with this new variant, the training may not have been adequate if it was as contagious as everyone's saying that it is. She was concerned for her colleagues having to deal with these patients and felt like they were thrust into the front line.
We have always trained our QAS officers to the maximum level. That is their expertise. They move infectious people every single day. That's what they do. And they've been moving people with this variant, but also with diseases that are more infectious than this. They know what they're doing. I have absolutely no concerns. Plus, we moved each room in their own ambulance. We didn't mix people. That's why it took so long. I'm sure people were thinking, why did it take from when we made the decision, first thing in the morning, till nearly midnight? It's because we couldn't let those people mix within the hotel when we were moving them out, and we couldn't let them mix when they went to the new hotel. So I assure you, all of those things were taken into consideration to make sure that the 129 people were kept safe and that anyone around them as this occurred was kept safe. I have no concerns there. So sorry, I had another question.
Are you confident no one left their room at the Grand Chancellor Hotel for any reason?
What was that question? Sorry, it's very loud with the clicking.
Are you confident no one left their room to the Grand Chancellor Hotel for any reason during that period?
That is what the police are investigating. That is what they are doing now.
So no one knows yet at this stage?
That's what the police are investigating. But if I could go back to your question, so there are some facts here that we do know. Right, so we know that the gentleman from the UK and his partner arrived on the 30th of December. That's a fact. They went into that room. Then we know as a fact that the man from the UK left that room on the 3rd of January. Another fact, when he was taken to hospital. And we know as another fact that the cleaner only worked on the 2nd. Right, another fact. So there is no way that the cleaner has gone into that room after that gentleman left. So they're all the facts, but the rest of the investigation still needs to be worked through by police. But I am very, very certain that the cleaner was only there on the 2nd, right, and the man was still in the room on the 2nd, so the cleaner did not go into that room on the 2nd.
In terms of the investigation, will health people be going into the rooms and testing whether there's virus in those rooms?
That's part of the consideration of what's happening at the moment, to try and work out if there's any more information we can get. But it's all part of the investigation, so we just need to wait for that investigation to do its work.
Dr. Young, the people that were in the hotel from New South Wales and Victoria, How many people have been contacted from each of those states, and have they been put into quarantine and tested and isolated?
Right. I don't have the full details. We know that number now of 147, and we know that 3/4 have been contacted, but I just got that information this morning before coming in here. I haven't got the specifics of how many are in each state, how many were maritime workers and have gone overseas, how many others have gone overseas, etc. That's all the detail that's being worked through.
That's a pretty big gap, 250 to 147.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Because
so misguided?
I am always the most cautious person. So I asked for a list of everyone, and I just took all the different lists I was given. So Maritime Services had a list, other people had lists, and because there are people in our society with the same names, so I did not do any cleansing at that point. I just added them all up and said that's the maximum number, 250. Then over the last 24 hours they've been able to go through each individual list, double check with dates of birth, with other information, and come out with that definitive 147. So I will always go for the broader and then tighten it.
Did you know how many of those that haven't been contacted? Ms. Dahl said that there was
I've said 3/4.
3/4.
Yeah. So everyone's received a text message telling them what to do,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's enough contact. We now need to actually go and visit and talk to these people. So that takes a little bit longer, but they've all been told.
Back to the hotel where they were taken to last night. There are reports online that regular residents in that precinct did cross paths with some of the other people being taken to that hotel. Can you dispute that? Can you say that definitely didn't happen, or was there instances where regular residents were crossing paths?
I don't have that detail, but I do know that all of those 129 residents that came from the Hotel Grand Chancellor wore PPE.
That's the main protocol there, so if someone does walk past incidentally...
I don't know. I'm not saying that did occur, but if it did occur, they were wearing PPE. So we've got multiple layers of protection. We don't just think one thing will work. We look at a whole range of things to work. Then, of course, we tested every single one of those 129 guests before they left the Hotel Grand Chancellor. So we'll be getting all that information, and then we'll be able to look if there was anything that happened later. We know that at that point in time what their status was. But every single person was treated as if they had an active infection.
Can I just confirm, Dr. Young, is it only the Western hotel that all of those travellers have been taken to?
Yes.
With some of those people not yet tracked down, is it a possibility we could go back into lockdown if you can't find them, or is that off the cards?
No, we'll find them. It's just you've got to remember some of these people have gone overseas. They've gone on their vessels and left the country. So we just need to work through all of them, and that's happening.
Dr. Young, we've so far managed to avoid any widespread community transmission from this, even though it's super infectious. Do you think it's good luck or good management?
I'm always going to say it's management, you make your luck, and we've got really good systems in Queensland, and Queenslanders also do everything that's asked of them. You've seen every day from the Deputy Police Commissioner how many fines they've handed out. It's minuscule. How many people have just done what's been asked. So I think that 3-day lockdown was critical, because then if any of those 406 close contacts are positive, we can say, well, that 3-day period, we'll contact trace them, of course, and just double check, but they weren't out and about spreading it. So it really is about our systems, and we've been managing this since January last year. We've got a lot of experience, and yes, this new variant is more contagious, but we've got all of that work that we've done till now to be able to manage it. Just imagine if it had been this variant that started the pandemic. It would have been much harder.
A traveller who first tested positive, he tested positive on the 2nd, but you said he wasn't moved to hospital until the 3rd.
Yeah.
Why was there a delay?
Getting the result. So
He tested positive on the 2nd.
yeah, so he was tested, and then we got the positive result, and as soon as possible he was moved.
But there was a delay.
No, there's not a delay. It takes 24 to 48 hours to get results.
So he was tested on the 2nd, but
Yeah.
the positive result came
Yeah,
back on the 3rd.
yeah. So there's no delay there. It actually, though, makes it easier, because we know then he did not leave his room till the 3rd, so that we don't think that's how there was transmission, because the cleaner only worked the 2nd. So it helps us try and work out potentially where this might have spread.
And from just a public health perspective, with people being in a hotel room, potentially without a balcony for 14 days, let alone 28 days, what concerns do you have about, just a person's health from being locked in a hotel room for that long?
Yep. So that's why we have health involvements and health assessments of everyone who goes into quarantine to work through if there is any extra support, and we do have extra support that we provide to people who need it.
But in terms of breathing, air conditioning for that length of time, no access to fresh air, if you don't have a balcony, what concerns do you have about a person's health in those circumstances?
It's mainly the mental health concerns, and that's the work that we do every single day in all of those hotels.
Just on mental health, how's the nurse's mental health, the cleaner's mental health going? You spoke about how she'd been helping out with the investigation, but it's a lot of focus on her. Do we know any of that?
There is a lot of focus on her, and all I can say is I thank her very, very much for all that she's done to assist. She has been extremely helpful.
In terms of the AHPPC meeting yesterday, was there anything else that you discussed about changing protocols in hotel quarantine other than perhaps the mining camp?
We discussed a lot of issues, and that information will go to National Cabinet for them to discuss.
Can you give us any idea?
No, that is a confidential committee. We do our work and then we provide the confidential information through to our own premiers, our own ministers, and it goes to National Cabinet.
Is it fair enough to assume that there might be changes in protocols in that information?
No, so National Cabinet has already made decisions about changed protocols because of this new infectious strain, and they've been put in place. So testing people before they get on planes to come into Australia, people wearing masks on planes, so all of that advice went to National Cabinet, was discussed, and National Cabinet came out and agreed.
Dr Young, the cricket this weekend at the Gabba, you're pretty confident that it'll all be safe?
Yes, I am, because I've been there, I've been to the Gabba, I've seen how they do things, it's very impressive. There'll be a 50% capacity, which means you can immediately have that checkerboard type arrangement in terms of spreading out of people. We've put in an additional mitigation in that we're requiring everyone to wear masks until they sit down in their seat, and we haven't had that before, so that's an additional layer of protection. And we're getting all this information, and I'm confident that we've got people who are close contacts into isolation. So yes, I'm very confident about that match.
The Indian cricket team, they haven't been too happy about how their hotel experience has been while being in Queensland. Is it a bit harsh on them given they've been in the country for so long and they've been in that bubble for so long, or you stand by the restrictions?
I stand by it. They have come from a hot spot, so they need to go into quarantine, and the time that they're in quarantine is less than I'm asking the people who've been in the Hotel Grand Chancellor to increase to. So I'm sure it's not pleasant, right? None of this is pleasant for a whole range of people, for a whole range of reasons, but we need to do it to keep people safe.
Deputy Commissioner, just before Dr Young goes though, Dr Young, given that the minimum requirement is 14 days in a hotel, let alone some of these people now up to 28 days, why is it not the case that the minimum standard for a room that's accepted into the program has access to a window that opens or even a balcony? Why is that not the minimum standard?
Because we haven't had that capacity. We were taking over 1,400 people, travellers from overseas per week. We will be able to do that when that number reduces to the 500 that was decided at National Cabinet. We just did not have the ability to implement that. Thank you.
Aside from looking at the quarantine procedures, is there anything else you're pushing for National Cabinet to consider next time it meets?
Oh, I just think that National Cabinet needs to have, full consideration of whatever AHPPC advice is provided to it. So I think it'll be a very important meeting. Okay, thank you.
For the Deputy Commissioner, please.
Lucky last one.
I thought I was the lucky last one.
Well, for me, you were.
Yes.
Will police be publicly releasing the results of the investigation once it's finished?
Like any investigation, we will release what we can release publicly. So obviously what we are looking at first and foremost is process and how this occurred and what we can learn from that process analysis so that we can prevent it happening in the future. Absolutely no problems with that. I don't think that there's any issues with that, but we need to conclude that investigation to get there. Obviously, we'll improve things as we can, as we go along, if we can. But if there are further investigations, and I don't know if that's going to happen, because what we have to do is establish the facts first and foremost. And once we establish the facts, we'll release what we can release publicly, and we'll make decisions about the other stuff if we need to.
Thank you. The lift at the building.
Sorry,
sources are telling us that the lift may be a main focus of this investigation. Can you talk us through what they're looking at with the lift? Was it cleaned regularly? What do we know so far?
Can I tell you the main focus for the investigation is everything to do with the Grand Chancellor, its environment, how it operates, the processes that people used, what occurred. So we're going to look at what should have happened, what did happen, and what more we can learn around what's happening. So nothing is off the table. We haven't got any conclusions at this stage, and as soon as we do to get to that point, we'll be able to finish. Thank you.